What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Combat Chain. I'm Patrick Shaw, and we have Yuki Lee Bender with us today. Adam, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Pat. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's been a little bit of a busy week, I think, for both of us. Huh? You've got you've had a lot of time on West Coast, Best Coast streams, and congratulations on making the playoffs. You guys are up against Galaxy Gaming, and winner goes up to D1, the big time.
Yeah, it's been super exciting to broadcast. What I think the series is as of now is when the evening of Wednesday, May 4th, when we're recording here. The series is tied at 1 apiece. Going into our next match is tomorrow on the Thursday, so probably right around when hopefully this is going to air. We're going to be having our match that's going to really determine who's going to have the stranglehold on the series. So it's super exciting. Super good players on both teams. Shout out to Galaxy Gaming, those guys pack a punch. And we're going to see who can get the win and who can get that coveted relegation into Div 1.
Yeah, it's super exciting, and also shout out to Division T3 Team 3. Oh, a Division 3 team. That's a lot of consonants happening over there. The Clout Chasers, who are also friends of the channel and the pod, but they are also in their playoffs in D3. Winner going up to D2, and they are having some of their games as we record right now. So. Rooting for the Clout Chasers to also win and moving up at the division. All this casting and streaming of the games here. Have you had an opportunity for any good games lately?
Not so much. We did this, actually, it was pretty fun. We did this past weekend play some Team Sealed. So if you don't know how Team Sealed works, you make teams of 3. Where you assign positions in the A seat, B seat, and C seat, and to build your decks amongst each of us, we each opened 2 packs of WTR, 2 packs of ARC, a pack of Crew, and a pack of Everfest. So 4, 3, 6, 9. So 9 packs of Welcome to Wrath, 9 packs of ARC. 3 packs of Crew, 3 packs of Everfest, and out of that pool, you have to build 3 decks, and you each have to actually assign like a like for the equipment and stuff, for like the sideboard, you have to assign like a smaller pool to each player, and then you play out. Each player plays it out, and you're aiming to get at least 2 wins amongst. It's a best of 3 kind of series for the overall win of the round.
That is insane. I've never heard of anything like that.
Yeah, it's a fan format. They've done it for some of the Battle Hardens. Initially, it was 9 packs of Welcome to Wrath, 9 packs of Arc, and then 6 packs of Crew, I believe was how it worked, and you build the deck out of that. We did it with I think we only had 1 box of Crew available or something like that, so we did it the 3 packs of the 3 packs of Crew, the 3 packs of Everfest per team, and it's a ton of fun. Team Sealed, like, you see such interesting deck builds, and any hero is like practically any hero is playable. The only one that's not in Team Sealed currently, like the way we do the packs, is Illusionist, Prism, right? But beyond, and I guess the Monarch and Everfest heroes. But then you could even do Team Sealed with like Monarch and Everfest and Tails, and that could be interesting too. So they're Team Sealed. There's lots of different ways you could approach it, I think, and it's Team Sealed's a fun format. It's something I encourage people to check out. just for fun. You have to work together as a team to like figure out, like, you know, if you only get like, we only had like a couple null rune across all three of us, so we had to figure out, you know, what's our how are we going to divide up this null rune? How are we going to divide up this equipment? You know, the generic equipment, who's going to get what, playing to each person's strengths. And actually, yeah. And during my team sealed, I can't believe I completely forgot about this. I opened a heart.
That's right, you son of a bitch. You did. You opened up a Heart of Fyendal.
Yeah, that was in my first pack of Welcome to Wrath. I was trying to, like, I had, sometimes I think you go to open packs and you're like, oh man, I really hope I open something good here. Like, and I find like the best packs are opened when you least expect it. And I went into this with zero expectations. I was 100% like, like, holy shit. And it was like, there it was. And, pardon my French. It was a fun little surprise.
Fabled. That's pretty crazy.
That's the third Fable I've opened.
Ooh, I remember. I've opened 2 Fables in back-to-back Arc boxes, and they were my first 2 boxes of Arc that I ever opened. And it was part of one night of getting, way back in when I went all in on Fab. I ordered a case of everything. And I ordered. I was on the Arcane Rising boxes, and I opened up a Fable in like pack 2, and then I was like, "What is this?" and then when I got to the second box, I opened another one, and I was like, "Oh boy!" And I put them on TCG Player. They did not sell for what I posted. I caught it right at the downturn, so I listed them at like 500 a piece, and I was like, "This paid for my purchase. I got all my cases paid for," but they stayed on. But they sold eventually. I have never seen another Fable, not one. I haven't even sniffed one. I don't know. All my luck, first two boxes of Arcane Rising. That was it for me.
Yeah, they're definitely like they are rare, right? Like that's what LSS intended for, and they certainly succeeded in achieving that.
And it's still, you know, one of the highlights of the world premiere Tales event in the Calling Las Vegas was the Corsham opening. That was like a highlight of the weekend. Was the first Fable from Tales. It's a great thing to do.
I remember the guy who opened the first Corsham there. Like, he was sitting just a couple tables away from me too, and I remember hearing him, like, he started to cheer or whatever, and it was something like that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So outside the team seal, there you how's the Pro Tour testing going?
It's coming along. I think I have my hero choice. I'm trying to get the reps in to like feel as comfortable on it as possible. I'll be honest, like I'm not going to say exactly what I'm on, but just the decision, though I'm somewhat familiar with it, I'm not super confident on it, and you know, there's a lot of nervousness surrounding picking up a deck you're not necessarily the most confident with, though I think of all the options, it's the best deck for me, and I think I can pilot it fairly well. You know, I've though with that being said, there's been a lot of hard learning lessons, and a lot of times where it's been like, oh, okay, I made some dumb mistakes, and I had thankfully opportunities to reflect on those and to understand. And I think they were actually really crucial mistakes that are hopefully going to make me a better player in result. Yeah, it's been it's been a big learning process, and I hope that's going to mean that, you know, good things come of New Jersey. Though I'm not going to say, you know, obviously I'm not going into it with the expectation of winning the whole thing or anything. I think I'd love to get that top 32. I think that's
yeah. I think there's definitely something to be said, like especially when you're doing hero choices, if the meta is dictating like a hero base that you might not be comfortable with. I always like people who pick up Starvo and pick up Michael Hamilton's list. Like Michael Hamilton is a better Guardian player than you, bruh. Like I don't like. There's just if you're just picking that up for the first time, there's no way that a guy like that or like Cody Williams on Chain or Tyler Horspool on Prism, like those guys exist. The lifers for those heroes that have made it to like the top tier. It's just I always think about that. Like I try to pick up. I'm not good at any of those heroes, and I remember just trying to pick them up, and I'm like I can get okay with it. But I know, like when I love Katsu. When I play against Chad Spencer and his Katsu, it always makes me feel like I have no idea what I'm doing, and it's back to square one. So it's intimidating to do that. I had to. So I'm winning the calling. I don't know if you knew this, but
okay.
That's
Perfect.
what's happening on my end. I believe I've settled on a deck. So obviously scrubbed out of ProQuest. Do not have a PTI, but I will be in New Jersey in the calling. And you know what? I actually feel pretty good for where I am. Maybe that's dangerous. Confidence is an awful thing. But I've got loads of it with absolutely no validation whatsoever. There's no reason for me to be as confident as I am. But I did pick I think I picked my dance partner for New Jersey. I feel good with it. There's no reason to hide it. So I'm on Briar. I'm on Channel Mount Heroic Briar. I'm taking the Foundations of Sam Dando's list and just running with it. I tried to pick up some of the other ones, Chain and Starvo and Prism, and Prism was the least likely one for me out of the big three. That was definitely never going to happen. And I did pick up Starvo, fix it up a little bit, and it's still really good, and it still is just a terrible thing to play, in my opinion. There's something just, I don't know. It feels bad to pilot, and it feels bad to oppose. Just having that fuse lottery. It's not even. They have Casino Starvo, but just having that. There's, like I said, Michael Hamilton's a better Guardian player than everybody who's ever played Guardian, and he's got a way to play that game that makes a whole lot of sense. But for most of us, it's look at your cards. If they fuse, you win. Kind of deal, and it's not a great play pattern. So it was really down. It turns out, when I really think about it, I've been a Runeblade player for I consider myself a Katsu main, but it turns out I've been playing Runeblades for much longer. In fact, in organized play than I have Katsu. So I think Katsu is kind of like my pet deck. So with Viserai dead and gone, I have to. I was down to Chain or Briar, and Chain is too weird for me. Can't make it work. Tried to make it work. Don't want to make it work. But I ran Briar from Tales pre-release all the way through to the end of through the ban list announcement for them. So picking up Briar again recently into this meta has felt like a kind of reigniting an old romance. I feel like we separated a little bit. We grew apart, and then we found each other again. And now I feel really happy playing with Bay. So I'm gonna be running her into the ground. In fact, hashtag shameless plug. I've been very open about finding good test games to go with. So
Yep.
I put out the feelers everywhere. And stalwart Azalea player Az from Go Again Gaming has stepped up to the challenge. I asked for testing partners, and he said, I'm going to slam arrows into your face. And we're going to stream it live. So this Friday night, which will be May 6th, Friday night, Az is staying up late around 1 a.m. his time, and we are doing Briar versus Azalea, and we're going to talk Classic Constructed. We're going to have some fun. But I told him to tech it out. I told him I'm playing Briar. I want him to cheat. I want him to shark. I want him to put me in a bad position so that he makes me a better player. So we're going to do that Friday night. And you know what? Ranger and Azalea, everyone kind of laughs until you don't respect them, and then they show up. And then Azalea can do some gross things to you. So I'm actually very happy to be able to get this kind of matchup in there. You know, I don't expect to see a ton of Azalea, but I'll be more prepared than the people who did not test against Azalea. So well, I got that going for me. But yeah, all that being said, happy to be playing Briar. We're going to take her to Jersey, and looking forward to seeing you in Jersey. Looking forward to see
the first time we'll
a bunch of
meet
people
in person.
Yeah, it was in person. It'll be crazy. You know what they're doing there? For those not in the Pro Tour, they released kind of bearing the lead of the news a little bit, but I'm just excited to see it. Team Blitz is a side event all weekend, and there will be one on Friday. So I'm coming down Friday, and I'm trying to recruit a team before we get there to see if they're in. But I think my first thing that I'm going to do down there is the Team Blitz event Friday afternoon. So I'm unreasonably excited about that.
I'd play with you if I wasn't busy with other things.
Yeah. I think you got something a little more important to worry about.
Just a little bit.
So let's talk some news. A few things have happened since our last recording. The history packs are about to hit shelves. I believe those are coming this Friday, May 6th, will be the release of history packs. MSRP is $139, $140. I believe you can get them. I've seen them as low as $110, but those are starting to hit the shelves. Adam, do you think are you going to get a box? Are you going to get a case? Are you going to open some history packs?
If I can get them as prize packs, I will. That's about it.
I might get a box if it's easy enough to get, just because I'm a degenerate and love opening packs. But I'm saving my money for Uprising. But yeah, so we
exactly.
had that. We had, leading up to May 2nd, right? All eyes were on the last few events here for Classic Constructed in April. We had in one weekend the Calling Taiwan. We had Battle Hardened Madrid and Battle Hardened Pittsburgh, all firing off on the same weekend. The two Battle Hardens had CC events where Starvo needed to win one of those, and the Calling, in order to reach Living Legend status. What we do know is that the the Battle Hardens were both not won by Starvo. I believe they were both won by Prism players.
That is correct. Yeah, it was two Prism players.
And the Calling Taiwan was in fact won by a Starvo player, but there was definitely some controversy in that finals match. Did you get an opportunity to watch the finals of Calling Taiwan?
I did not see the entire thing, but I did see the clip.
Mm-hmm.
I think Flake had it on his Twitch profile.
Yeah, they had both Flake and DM Armada were streaming their commentary, so they were commentating together, much like we're doing, and they both streamed their ends on their respective channels as it was happening live. But I believe they both clipped it and had a breakdown of what was happening there, and it was slick the first time I saw it. So for the audience, if you're not aware, it was Starvo versus Chain in the finals. Starvo hit a super fused Okanold into Chain. Chain blocked a card, had 3 cards left in hand. Okanold's on hit ability reads, take 2 random cards and place them at the bottom of your deck. So if you assign cards the 3 cards 1, 2, and 3. Chain presented to Starvo cards 1, 2, and 3. Starvo selected 1 and 3. Chain brought his cards back together, grabbed 1 and 3, slyly looked at the cards, saw something he didn't like, and switched card 1 with card 2 very subtly, and put cards 2 and 3 instead of 1 and 3 onto the bottom of his deck. It really takes several views to really catch the action, but when you see it and realize what was happening, it does look pretty well practiced. I don't think that is the first time that person has done that maneuver. But the result of that was the match was stopped and judges were called and play was halted, and was not resumed until the feed came back, and we had found out both through the video, and the tournament organizer actually hopped into the Twitch chat and explained that the Chain player was disqualified from the match for that particular action, resulting in Starvo winning the match via disqualification. So some controversy overseas, and I'm sure LSS is not a huge fan of seeing the grand finale of one of their major tournaments end in that fashion. But it really is, it's outside their control at that point, so it's hard to hard to blame them for that. But it is unfortunate. There was some pretty swift judgment had, though. The player in question has been suspended from all organized play for 2 years, so cannot appear in any organized event. And I believe that's pre-releases and anything in between. Anything that uses a gem ID, I think he's out for 2 years. What do you think? What do you think of the consequences there? Is a 2-year suspension where you feel comfortable with?
I think this is all appropriate.
Yeah.
There's
some people calling for like an immediate lifetime ban when something like that happens. What's your stance on something like that? How do you feel about lifetime bans, Adam?
I think people can change, and to just damn somebody for life, that seems a little harsh. I think 2 years is long enough to keep them out of the game for a bit and make them question how important this game is to them and whether they want to, change and no longer exhibit this behavior or not. I think this is perfect.
I agree. I don't think I would have been mad with a lifetime ban. But I think some sort of slap on the wrist, I think wouldn't have gone over well either. So I think that was the right move. So given the results of that weekend, the Battle Hardens and the Calling all happening at once, confirming that Starvo would not reach Living Legend status by May 2nd, LSS made the scheduled banned and suspended announcement early. Effective May 2nd, Awakening is banned. Autumn's Touch is suspended until Starvo becomes Living Legend. Bloodsheath Skeleton is suspended until Viscerai Runeblood becomes Living Legend. And Seeds of Agony moves from banned to suspended until Chain Bound by Shadow becomes Living Legend. So initially with the classic constructed moves, what do you think? What do you think of the list?
I think everything here is reasonable and appropriate. The one thing I think I would have liked to have seen differently, I would have rather seen Sonata get targeted rather than Scalata for Viscerai.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
I think, I really think getting Scalata, though getting Scalata doesn't make Viscerai unplayable. It kind of shut down some of his things that he still could do, whereas Sonata I think was like the really the Sonata Scalata interaction was, I think, the really busted interaction.
I agree. I think that the two of them combined were the problem, right? And when they were being able to be executed, and I also think that Revel should have been targeted as well. I think I would have been happy with Sonata or Revel, and I think Skeletor has died for their sins. This is a lot like the Plunder Run ban. For me, it has died for Briar's sins, because it was really the explosiveness in which you could, execute some of those plays there. Revel, even on the tempo play, Revel gain 6, pop Skeletor, Sonata out of nowhere. That was the thing that I think really took people over the top. Looking at this with fresh eyes, though, I do see one of my sad points here was that Briar does not have Bloodsheath Skeletor. But if I root hard enough for Viserai to win and get Living Legend, she can have Bloodsheath Skeletor back. So I think I just right now, just got on the Viserai train all over again. He's got to win.
Yeah, so we got to find some other busted way to make Viserai good.
Also, of note, Seeds of Agony banned to suspended until Chain, which means Seeds also can come back. Just Chain's gotta get out. We know that's broken with Chain, but it tells us that there's clearly some plans in the future here for Shadow Rune Blades that aren't Chain. That's that's a glimmer of a morsel of a crumb of a thing just in the off distant future. I don't think Chain's going to be there quite yet, though. This is, kind of what we're seeing here, barring even if Starvo reaches Living Legend, the meta that we're seeing is basically the meta through June 24th, which includes another ProQuest season. The likelihood of one of these heroes that are close at the top of the meta winning a large share of the games will rise. And, given short notices here, who knows how many callings are going to happen between now and the 24th. So it'd be interesting to see if a Chain, or I don't know where Prism is, but it'd be interesting to see how quickly it takes for some of these to come off the list with their heroes reaching Living Legend. Further down the list, they have Blitz announcements. Viserai, young Viserai, and its signature weapon, Nebula Blade, have reached Living Legend.
Oh, not the busted Nebula Blade. What are we going to do without that?
All it took was one skirmish season. I don't know if Viserai had any points at all.
In Blitz? Yeah, that's a good point.
In Blitz. And then he won 500 just out of nowhere. So ban everything in Blitz. That's fine. Blitz was a broken degenerate format. It was a 2-turn kill fest, and no one was happy playing that. So it's good to see Viserai get the Living Legend. We do have some additional bans. Awakening is banned in Blitz. Heartened Cross Trap out of nowhere is banned from Blitz. And we have some suspensions. Seeds of Agony banned to suspended until Chain becomes Living Legend. Snapback. Adam, Snapback.
I know.
Is suspended until the next scheduled announcement following the conclusion of Skirmish Season 5. Asterisk. Skirmish Season 5 is scheduled to conclude August 22nd, 2022. And we have an idea of the pattern of organized play here coming up. Sonata Arcanix, this is what they should have done in Constructed. Sonata Arcanix is suspended until the next scheduled announcement following the conclusion of Skirmish Season 5. Stir the Aetherwind. Adam, that's another one.
Oh, they're just blow after blow for Kano.
Oh, out of nowhere. Kano was just sitting there eating his sandwich on the bench, and just a mob came and just punched him right in the face and took his sandwich. I just don't understand what happened here. And so we'll talk about the Blitz stuff in just a second here, but the following change is effective starting June 24th, 2022, which, for those sleuths out there, is the same day that Uprising releases. Stubby Hammers is banned. Stubby Hammers still legal now. Stubby Hammers banned June 24th. What?
Yeah, and I think the Stubby Hammers one, I don't know if we're going to talk about this. The Stubby Hammers one is apparently because there is some interaction in Uprising that like makes Stubby Hammers a very reliable one-turn kill. And as surprising as that one is to everyone, apparently it's for very good reason.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things going on there. The Sonata, I will say the Sonata suspension should have happened in Constructed instead of Skeleton. But an interesting one because Viserai's done. Viserai's living legend. So is Sonata broken in Briar Blitz? In Chain Blitz? Is that what they're saying right now? It's a little confusing that they chose to take Sonata out at this exact moment.
Yeah, I agree. That one surprised me a little bit as well.
It makes sense on the surface when you see that. It's like, oh, Viserai got living legend and Sonata got suspended. Of course, because Sonata was the catalyst for broken Viserai things, but Viserai's gone. So math doesn't add up quite there yet. Heart and Crossstrap is definitely a one that also seems a little from left field. If we go to LSS's reasoning here, they say Heart and Crossstrap is a no questions asked start in play one turn kill combo enabler. While this card has not had a glamorous existence to date, we are confident Heart and Crossstrap will become a common centerpiece of OTK decks if it remains legal in the Blitz format. In support of slowing the format down, Heart and Crossstrap is banned.
So LSS knows something we don't know.
They when I saw that initially, I'm going, are they afraid that Rhinar as is just going to run rampant and have Viserai's down? Was Rhinar gate kept? Like he was doing good in the latter half of the skirmish season here when Haydendale posted that list, and it does. I mean, it's good. It does do its thing, but it's not often a one-turn kill. But they did preview a 6 attack, 2 costs Draconic card. So maybe we're looking at, Stubby Hammers. They're okay with saying, yeah, this is because of Uprising. Heart and Crossstrap, they're going, but we know it might be because of Uprising. Kano was the weird one for me. I guess it was kind of innocuous at the time because Kano has always done what Kano does, and it has always killed fast, and I felt like the rest of the format caught up a little bit with it. But they say that Kano is able to end the game as early as turn 1, while his win percentage across the skirmish season wasn't at a level we consider problematic. We believe that forcing Kano to approach the game in a more restrained way is conducive to a better overall player experience. We are moving to suspend 2 pieces from Kano's repertoire to dampen his explosiveness. We will monitor the impact that this has on Kano's overall playability and review the longer-term status of these cards upon the time of the first banned and suspended announcement following the conclusion of Skirmish Season 5.
Once again, it makes me wonder what LSS knows. There's got to be something they're up on that we're not quite, that is enabling these plays. And I think we're getting better, as a player base globally, we're getting better and better at solving metas. I think there's probably some respects where LSS is still ahead of the game. We are now at a point where in some ways LSS is reacting to the player base, but I think there is still an element of LSS has some things figured out we're not aware of.
It's getting a little confusing. I'm looking at this from Viserai. I also ran Viserai in Blitz, right? So Viserai's just done altogether for me as a playable hero. And my first thought was Briar, right? Let's go back to Briar. Lightning Briar is surprisingly viable. I don't care what people say. play that in Blitz. It's still got some it's still got some fire, but it started with the Plunder Run ban, right? Plunder Run Constructed. There are a lot of people didn't equate that Plunder Run was still legal in Blitz when that first happened. So a lot of deck designs in Blitz were taking Plunder Run out of that equation. And now you have Sonata. So Sonata is suspended in Blitz, but not in Classic Constructed. Skeleta suspended in Classic Constructed, not in Blitz. Your Stir and Snapbacks are suspended in Blitz, not in Classic Constructed. Right, your Stubby Hammers are banned at a later date, and it just adds. It's just you got to make sure your list is open when you're building decks, depending on your format and the hero that you're picking.
Yeah, for sure.
And we do have. So with all that being said, the next scheduled ban and suspended announcement is June 24th, 2022. So barring a grossly meta warping deck or hero or card that emerges out of the Pro Tour here, we will be establishing the meta and running with it until June 24th with Uprising release. So would not expect to see any changes until then. Like I said, barring an act of God. I don't think there's any cards right now that would cause us to. I don't know what would be suspended at this point, but it'll be interesting to see if something emerges. And I don't think there's going to be any single one card or hero here that will cause them to abridge their ban announcement to something earlier. So we do have that. And speaking of Uprising is coming on June 24th, but LSS announced that the world premiere of Uprising is taking place the weekend of June 10th through the 12th, and is taking place simultaneously in 3 different areas in the world. We're going to have an event at Las Vegas, we're going to have an event in Madrid, and we're going to have an event in Sydney, Australia, Madrid, Spain. So we're going to have world premiere events simultaneously at 3 locations in the world. We're going to have Las Vegas in the US, we're going to have one in Madrid, Spain, and we're going to have one in Sydney, Australia. During that weekend, each event will have a world premiere sealed deck event that takes place on day 1. Day 2, guess what's going to happen on day 2? We're going to have Team Blitz calling.
Ooh, spicy.
All 3 locations. Team events are great for any TCG. So you were talking about Team Sealed. I'm excited for Team Blitz at the Calling New Jersey. The team. If I can find my way to Vegas, I will be there. I don't know if I can. Gotta win some money off some scratchies, I think, to cover both New Jersey and Vegas here. But we're gonna try. But a lot of other people will be there. But Team Blitz calling action, 3 different locations. Not playing with the Uprising cards, obviously, but yeah, world premiere events have been successful. We talked about the Tales of Aria world premiere earlier. These are, I think they're wonderful. I think I love that LSS puts a lot of weight into the premiere of a set like this, and it comes off real well. Looking forward to see what the cards look like when they come out. I want people to leak them like crazy. We received the Content Creator Appreciation Kit. We have now in our possession a whole lot of Herald of Rebirth promo cards, extended art Herald of Rebirth of the rainbow varieties. We got blue pitch, yellow pitch, and red pitch. And we have 3 playmats. We have the Celestial Cataclysm, Eclipse, and Doomsday playmats. A big shout out to LSS for getting that to us, and we will be do you want to talk about it, or just say we're gonna be
I think this will be Yeah, this should be up in time to hopefully catch the early birds. Yeah, we're doing we're already doing a giveaway on Twitter. We're giving away a playset of the Heralds in all 3 colors. All you got to do is like, retweet, and follow us on Twitter, and that's going to be, we're going to do the draw for that May 6th, Friday, May 6th at was that 5 p.m. MDT?
That's 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time for us East Coasters.
Yes, it is.
But yeah, liking and subscribing to our Twitter will get you the full play set. Adam insisted. I was like, no, you're crazy. You're a madman. And then he hit me. And he's like, no, we're going to go through it. And I was like, please don't. And then he posted it anyways. So it's up there. Can't stop him. He just wants to give all these things away immediately. So it is out there. One person, 9 cards. You're just going to get your full set right out there. It's going to be beautiful. I was lucky enough back in the day to get a full set from Go Again Gaming was doing a giveaway. So I got 9 Heralds of Protection from each pitch. And thank you, Az. We love you here. And I cherish those promos. So we're happy to give those out to a member of the community, and we will be. Do you want to do Patreon? Do you want to talk about the Patreon?
I was just going to say, just to clarify, these are Herald of Rebirths, though, not Herald of Protections.
Yes. These are Herald of Rebirth. Herald of Protection was on Content Creator 1 the last year.
Yeah. Now they're doing Herald of Rebirth this time instead, I guess.
Yes.
Were the Herald of Rebirths available elsewhere? I can't remember.
I don't think so.
No, so this is just.
I believe these are one of a kind.
Ooh, so even spicier. So this is the first round for these promos, not the second time around like I thought it was.
We're giving away the full set of Herald of Rebirths, and we have obviously we have a Patreon, and we have set up a tier on the Patreon. It is called the you can be a founding link of the combat chain. Some creative genius came up with that. You're welcome. But for the first 15 people who subscribe to our Patreon and choose to support us in that way, will get for free one card, a full set, 1 card each of each pitch. So if you support us on Patreon, we're going to give you 3 of those promos for signing up as a thank you. We are still working on the logistics of a giveaway. We want to give out the playmats. We're gonna organize that in a way, and obviously we have more Heralds to give away, and we'll be doing that on various sources. So we do have that happening. All right, Adam. We have a very special guest with us today. We have the one and only Yuki Lee Bender here, 2021 Canadian National Champion Yuki Lee Bender. Yuki, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Definitely getting, I'm tired from all the testing and all the hard work with getting ready for the Pro Tour, but it's a lot of fun and I'm doing fantastic. So yeah.
Excellent. I've enjoyed watching your games on the competitive team league. It's been fun. Obviously, Adam's been kind of taking that and just running away with it, getting those games on stream. He's done a really good job on it. We'll get into that and some other things, but no one escapes the origin story. So why don't you tell us, who are you and how the hell did you get here?
Yeah, for sure. And thanks for having me on, by the way. It's a pleasure to be on the show. So in terms of card games, basically I originally started playing Magic the Gathering back in around 4th edition. So I think it's like 95, 96. And it's like very at home with my family, at school with my friends, like super, super casual. I had no idea that organized play existed. I didn't really know that I knew that there were formats, but I didn't engage with them. We just kind of built decks with cards that we had. I did know the rules, which I know is not necessarily always the case for people like way, way back, because the rules were quite complex and people didn't necessarily fully understand the rules. And I think I had a pretty good grasp of them, and I really liked deck building, and that was kind of my thing. But it was always just like a very casual endeavor. And it wasn't until probably I'd say Hearthstone that I kind of got into more like I revisited it as an adult because I had stopped sort of like somewhere in the middle of high school. I had stopped playing card games, and Hearthstone really got me to revisit it. And I kind of created that itch of like, oh, I want to get back to Magic. I want to get back to Magic. And so eventually that got me back into Magic, funnily enough, and I started drafting, and that was sort of like my way of getting back into that game. I had never known about draft before, and it just seemed so cool, and it really kind of captured, for me, it kind of captured like some of that youth of you're excited about every card that you open, and it might be some common, but it's like perfect for your deck, and that's really satisfying. And I feel like sometimes that gets lost when you're like an adult and you have disposable income and you can buy whatever singles you want. It's easy to just like flip through the commons and be like, okay, whatever, I'm done with these, or not even look at them in a lot of cases. Like some people just shove them aside face down, look at the rares, okay, next pack. So I like that experience of opening the booster, and I feel like that's really important in limited. And yeah, so in terms of Fab, I guess LSV, famous Magic Hall of Famer, got into Fab, and on his YouTube channel, or maybe he was featured on Channel Fireball, I think, rather than his own YouTube channel. He had some Fab videos, and I thought the game just looked super, super cool.
I know the videos you're talking about. I got into the same ones. Yep.
Yeah, it was just so fun, like watching him and Raptor play, and yeah. Just like the back and forth and like kind of the grittiness of it, I really liked. And the game just seemed really interesting. Like it, I guess one of the things that got me with like Hearthstone, and I've tried a couple other games like Shadowverse. They all kind of feel to me like Magic, but it's like just a little bit different and has some gimmick, or it's a bit watered down, and I always kind of end up walking away and going like, why don't I just play Magic? Like that's the game I've always played. That's the game I fell in love with. Why do I want to play this other game that's like not quite Magic? And it struck me right away that Fab is something unique. It's something different. And when I started playing it with a friend, just like my friend and I picked it up. We were playing on TTS just to try it out, and yeah, right away it was like, this is so fresh, so different. The games are close. You always feel like there's lots of decisions and lots of agency, and the game is just so resonant. Like all the heroes feel like the warriors feel like a warrior, the ninja feels like a ninja, the ranger feels like a ranger, and I think that's like one of the things that's just so special about Fab, and that I really, really enjoy. So yeah, I guess kind of worked my way up as a limited player, was starting to get into constructed Magic before the pandemic, and then Fab came, and I don't know, I just kind of got sucked in, and never looked back. And Fab's kind of the first game that's really kind of grabbed me for constructed, I think. Magic, it was always like not bad, but I really enjoyed the limited experience. And don't get me wrong, I love limited Fab. That is a huge passion for me, and the fact that the game has limited is a big selling point. But I've also really kind of learned to appreciate the deck building and the deck construction in Fab, and getting to, the format doesn't get solved so fast without a digital client, and there's a lot of room to kind of explore and dig in and try things out. And so, yeah, there's a lot to like about the game.
So you obviously are very competitive in Flesh and Blood. You did win the national championship of Canada. How did you transition from I suppose regular Flesh and Blood player and decide that you're gonna take this to the next level, to where you're at right now?
Yeah, so I guess I have the kind of personality that I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily hyper competitive, but I tend to get very focused on things. I like to do well. Like I've played a lot of video games, and I really enjoy that like that experience of like trying to optimize and get mastery over something and improve and do better and
Hmm.
understand things. So I think that kind of naturally pushes me to be maybe not like the spikiest player, but like a more competitive one. The more I get into something, the more serious I tend to take it, and the more I want to learn all the ins and outs. Like I have a math background, and I think that kind of like problem solving optimization stuff is very appealing to me. So I think that kind of came naturally, and um, it is funny though. Like I was not a player that was flying to callings, for example. I haven't
Hmm.
actually been to a calling, and I didn't even actually win a ProQuest. There was only one ProQuest in our area. I hadn't traveled to other ProQuests, so like while I was taking the game seriously, I wouldn't say I was super competitive. And the only reason I actually ended up going to nationals is one of my friends and one of my locals, Jay. He had gotten a qualification and he wanted to go, but he wanted people to go with. And so he had asked me if I would grind the XP leaderboard. And I was like, oh, no way. Like, I'm not going to make it. And he said, no, 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 I think you can. And he talked me into it, as he's very good at doing. And so I did. And I wound up going, and it was like a competitive event that I wanted to do well in, but I also wanted to have fun at. But winning to some degree came as a surprise to me. Like, I haven't like I guess in Magic I've day two GPs, I've top baited like local 1Ks and stuff, but I never won a big event or anything. So that
Hmm.
was like
Hmm.
my first major event that I won. So um, I guess partially by accident, by having the right deck in the right time and the right meta, and just putting in a bunch of reps and getting lucky with some of the matchups. And yeah, I think a lot of things kind of went my way in flesh and blood to win nationals, and I kind
Hmm.
of got there like partially through hard work but partially just through chance. Like it wasn't like I wanted to win, I wanted to do my best, but it wasn't like I went in and going like I'm a favorite to win, like by any means. There was a lot of very good players there. So yeah, and that's kind of jump started everything. Since Nats, I guess I kind of felt like, oh, like, you know maybe there's something there, maybe I can actually do this. And taking it I've been getting much more competitive and much more serious about it since then. And like winning the pro quest kind of reinforced that, and now going to the pro tour. So it's sort of I hadn't expected to necessarily like have such a competitive outlook into this game, but it's kind of just where things have started taking me, and I'm really enjoying it. So as long as I'm enjoying it, I'm gonna keep chasing it.
Excellent, excellent. Where was it? You won with Lexi in the national championship. What was you had mentioned the right deck and the right meta. What about Lexi and that deck and that meta led you to picking her?
Yeah, so I guess I always liked Ranger, since Rising days. I guess I started around Crucible, but still I really enjoyed Azalea. I really enjoyed the mechanics. It was a favorite class of mine. And so I played her at Armory a bunch for a long time. So
Hmm.
when Lexi came out, I was immediately excited about her. I built her a whole bunch of different ways and constructed when exploring that early meta. And in particular, I had been exploring ice a lot in Blitz, which is kind of funny because I don't think that Ice Lexi is actually that well suited to Blitz. But when the cards first came out, I saw, well, she taxes defense reactions, and like Frostlock turns off zero costs, and maybe all that stuff is like good into Ira, who was a big deck at the time. So I'd kind of built this like Ice Lexi Blitz deck that I had been working on for pretty much like the whole time that Tales of Aria had come out, or had been out of it. And then when I saw, but she wasn't on my radar at all. Like Prism was my old main in Classic Constructed back in Monarch, and I thought I was going to bring Prism to Nationals. She seemed like a really good deck, and then suddenly Lightning Briar just kind of exploded out of nowhere. And when that happened, I went, well, I've played against not this exact Briar list, but I played against, Briar decks and Blitz, and the Lexi deck that I have is really good against it. And this deck has almost all reds.
Hmm.
It looks like a good matchup to me. It makes sense that that's a good matchup. And when I tried it, it was immediately apparent that it was incredibly favorable. I have hardly lost a game to Lightning Briar as Lexi. I think like lifetime record is somewhere in the like 30-1 or 25-1 kind of range. So yeah, it's just kind of like a happy coincidence that my pet deck and Blitz suddenly became very good in CC and seemed like the deck to bring. And I was quite nervous about it just because it was like so off meta, but I decided to go for it, and I felt like it gave me the best chance at possibly winning the event so long as I could, fight against mostly Briars, and that's exactly what happened. I managed to avoid Oldham in the top 8 and just capitalize on that Briar heavy meta and just have a deck that was perfect for the moment. I think that, even a little bit later as Oldham picked up steam, I might have had a lot harder time with the deck running into more Oldhams that might shut me down. So
yeah, I'm fairly certain I am on the opposite side of that record on Lightning Briar into Lexi. I was a Lightning Briar deck, and Lexi's boogeyman. Can't get over her. How closely do you follow the LSS news? Do you the Fab 2.0 announcements and things of that nature? How do you have your pulse on the game itself, I suppose, or do you focus a lot on things like the market and the collectability and some of the controversies going on, or you mostly try to put your blinders on and go onto the competitive side of things? Like, does that affect some of your thinking about the game and how you go about it?
Yes and no. Like I'm definitely in touch. I think it's hard to be as engaged with the game as I am, or care about the game as much as I do, and not have that stuff at least partially on your radar. So I'm definitely in touch with it. I also see a lot of it on Twitter and on Facebook, so you kind of bump into it. But I also usually read like when the new articles come out, I usually at least give them a gander, and certainly something as big as Fab 2.0 I read through. So yeah, I definitely look at all of that stuff. I think the collectability for me, I'm sort of like I feel like I'm a player, and that I think that playing is important. So I agree with that vision, but I also know that the economics of it and the model of it is really important, and it needs to work for stores, not just players, but it also needs to work for stores. Like the stores need to be making money off it to want to carry the product. LSS needs to be making money off the product to be able to develop a game and host events and do all the wonderful things that they do. So, I think, I guess if nothing else, I would say that I like that LSS is thinking about this. I think it's really important. I like that they have a plan. I'm going to try and put my faith into them that they are hopefully doing the right things around the distribution and the collectability of it. I think that they've kind of, to me, it seems like they've struck a reasonable place of, respecting, like, here are some fancy cold foils that are highly collectible, but making their product also widely available. So on the surface, it looks good, but it's hard to say until we see it. And I think it's hard to really comment on the decisions being made when we have so little information, right? Like it's easy to look at Arcane Rising out of print announcement, but we don't know all the figures of how much is in distribution, how much is sitting on shelves at stores. Like I'm sure that LSS has thought about all of these things when they decide to stop printing a set of like, well, this much is selling, here's how much is out there, it'll probably stick around for this long. So I think it's a very complex topic, and I'm inclined to give LSS the benefit of the doubt until, until there's evidence to show that they haven't been managing it well. Then I think that's the time to really worry about it. But, I understand that people get worried about things that they care about. So
sure, absolutely. So obviously there's recently the banned suspended list. Before that, the meta took a pretty solid shape coming into the ProQuest season. How did you feel about where it was from coming into ProQuest season? What was your take on it? What did you feel like was your hero, your hero that gave you the best chance of winning, leading up to this most recent banned and restricted suspended announcement?
Right. So prior to the announcement, I think it was pretty clear that the big decks were Viserai, Prism, and Chain. Or sorry, Starvo,
Mm-hmm.
Viserai, and Prism, with Chain being sort of like a
Yeah,
close.
Chain's right there.
Yeah. And for a long time, I think I was definitely like a little bit of a naysayer of Starvo. I didn't completely buy it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think particularly like a lot of the aggro lists felt very beatable to me with Prism in particular. And well, I thought that the deck was good. I didn't necessarily think it was. I didn't believe that it was as good as I think it actually was in reality until the meta really kind of took shape and we saw things like the calling Indianapolis, and we saw actually Michael Hamilton's list I was a huge fan of. I thought it made a
Mm-hmm.
lot of sense, shored up a lot of the weaknesses, was much more well-rounded, much more consistent. And it was the first time that I picked up a Starvo deck and said, actually, this deck feels really good. So I think that Starvo did develop into being the best deck, and while Prism was a good counter, she overall had like a little bit of a weaker matchup spread. She could struggle, especially into Viserai, as Viserai was a very hard matchup. And then for Viserai, good into Prism, but struggles into Starvo. So I think while they were all very, very powerful and very strong heroes, it felt like Starvo just had the best, was the most well-rounded. He didn't have any matchup that was too unwinnable, and while Prism was unfavored, it was still like he was definitely in the game. So
Mm-hmm.
um, Starvo deck to beat, Prism and Viserai kind of a close second. I think that interestingly, as much as Viserai was maybe lacking results, that he was maybe better than people thought he was. I think that perhaps just some of the difficulty of piloting that deck might have held it back from really performing and having a breakout event. But
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I guess we won't know for sure since the deck is in shambles now. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is dead or Viserai. Um, let's see here. So did you happen to catch the Calling Taiwan? Did you see
I did.
the event there?
Yeah, I
Um,
was watching it live. In fact, yeah.
yeah, same as me. So when you when the in the finals, obviously there was a huge thing that happened. It looked subtle. It almost looked like the chat got a hold of it before the judges did. But there was obviously the end result was a disqualification of the event. So a little controversy going off there. Um, how do you feel about LSS's reaction afterwards to that disqualification? How do you when you saw that initially, what were your thoughts on it, and the subsequent consequence of that being a 2-year suspension? What are your thoughts on their their penalty at the
Mhm.
high level of organized play? How do you feel about that?
Right. So when I saw it, I actually didn't notice it right away, but somebody I was watching with went, wait a second, that looked really weird, and then
Mhm.
clipped it, and sure enough, it was. And when I saw it, I was like, well, that looks really bad. It looks like a pretty clearly intentional cheat. I don't think it's like I know in the past players have been disqualified for things like having the pitch oriented the wrong way, and that could be an honest mistake feasibly, but you I don't think you can make this kind of I don't think that this is something that can happen unintentionally. Basically, it seemed very practiced, and it
Yep.
looked the video evidence of it looked pretty damning. Um, I think that it is fantastic that we live in a time where that can get caught, and that Twitch chat can get all over that, and that we don't have to go back. I'm not saying that Chain was necessarily going to win that event, but had he, we don't have to go back retroactively and kind of re-announce and do all of that. I'm glad it was dealt with so quickly. So I thought that was a huge positive. I think LSS's response, I think it's reasonable. I definitely think something needed to happen. Whether or not 2 years is the appropriate amount of time, I guess. I don't know. I haven't been in the hyper competitive TCG space long enough to have like a solid opinion about like what the right amount of time is, but I'm glad that something is done. And for me, I guess this feels kind of like maybe close to like the bare minimum of like what I would be happy with. I think that allowing players a chance to reform is good. And I guess one thing I would be curious about is like what happens next, like if there's a repeat offense, what happens, and things like that. So I do like that they banned that or suspended that player. I'm glad that they're being proactive about it. I do partially wish they would give a little bit of like clarity or a little bit of direction or something, because they've just kind of like quietly removed him from the like they show the top eight the brackets, and they've just like removed that player. And I know that the focus is on the winner, like that player still won the event. Don't want to take anything away from him. But I do kind of wish there was a little bit of just something to show that like
a little transparency.
We saw this. Here's kind of our like what we're looking at in terms. Here's what we're thinking of, like where if there's future infractions, then maybe we'll increase the penalty. I'm sure they've thought about it. Just the communication piece would be nice. Yeah.
So you are one of the flagship members, I would say, of the West Coast Best Coast competitive team league, Flesh and Blood competitive team league team in Division 2. In the team league, you guys are in the playoffs right now. Tell me a little bit about your experience. Is this your first season in it? Give me a little bit about your experience so far. How do you like it? How do you feel like everyone else is taking it around you? Do you take this seriously? Is this more of a fun thing for this, or are you ready to stomp on some throats? How has Adam been as a caster, manager, entity in West Coast Best Coast? Tell me your thoughts on the competitive team league.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed getting to play with just so many different players. Like sometimes it's hard to get, especially with all the travel restrictions and COVID restrictions that have been in place. It's like it's sometimes hard to get out of your own little bubble. You know what I mean? Like you get to play against your local scene, and that's what you play against. And I guess like I got to go to Nats and play against the Canadians, but even like Americans, like I hadn't played against American players until like Portland ProQuest. So I've really enjoyed getting to see just like so many different players, like some of them from Germany, some of them from Hong Kong, like just from all over. And I'm excited to see like that continue as we go into Pro Tour and World. So that's been like a huge highlight of the whole team league for me. I think the format is really fun. I enjoy having different heroes. I think it lets us see more heroes than you would typically see at like certainly at a calling of this same meta game. We saw way more heroes just because of the restrictions in the format of the league. The team's been awesome. I think there's a lot of strong players on our team. There's been a lot of camaraderie, I guess, amongst the players. We've been helping each other out, cheering each other on. I know a lot of people have been testing together as well. So that's been kind of like a lot of players that some of which I know and some of which are new to me, coming together and getting to know each other. And that's like one of the best parts about card games. So overall, I'd say that this league has been a huge success. Would definitely look at doing it again. I think Adam's been doing an awesome job. I'm amazed that he's always there for just about every match. That's some major dedication, and always getting people in to cast different people like yourself, like Eric. I've even guested on a video as well, and And so yeah, it's just the whole thing's been really positive, and would definitely do it again. In terms of how serious it is, I think for me right now it definitely is more on the casual side. There's not really anything at stake. I know that we can move up the division, but until there's something attached to that, it's you know, it's for fun, it's for bragging rights, and it's to get some good games of FAB in more than anything. Yeah.
Hell yeah, Adam, we got to get the Eye of Ophidia trophy. It's going to look just like this Lombardi trophy in the Super Bowl, with Eye of Ophidia instead of football.
Yeah,
It's gold. I tell you, people will be flocking all over the world to play in this if we get the Eye of Ophidia trophy.
Tyler, if you're listening, let's talk. Let's get a FAB competitive team.
Let's talk marketing. Let's do this. They have been looking at I know every year, this is the second year it's happened, but he like begs LSS for support, and they recognize it, but one day soon. So the playoffs in this is under the new meta as of May 2nd. We have the banned and suspended list is in effect. Beyond just the team league, how do you feel about this the banned and suspended list that LSS came out with? And you know what? We'll go. I'm gonna ask you individually about the stuff. So we'll break down the ban list first. So on Classic Constructed, effective May 2nd, we have Awakening is banned. We have Autumn's Touch is suspended until Bravo Star of the Show becomes Living Legend. Bloodsheath Skeleton is suspended until Viscerai Runeblood becomes Living Legend. Seeds of Agony moves from banned to suspended until Chain Bound by Shadow becomes Living Legend. When that was announced, what were your thoughts, and how do you feel it changes the meta right now?
Yeah. I was glad that they moved up the banned and suspended announcement for starters. I'm glad that they did that and gave us all a little bit more time. I think that a lot of the changes make sense. I think that Awakening kind of does violate some of the principles of the game. Just having like such a big pivot turn for so few resources just feels kind of fundamentally not flesh and blood, at least to me. So I think that's a good card to go. Autumn's Touch is a very funny one for me, just because one of my good friends and one of our locals, Jay, had been going on for weeks about how Autumn's Touch is what they should ban from Starvo. So when it actually happened, it was a good laugh. We all really enjoyed that. So shout out to Jay with that prediction. Yeah. I guess starting with those two, I was cautiously optimistic about it. I do think it has opened the door a little bit for other decks. I thought initially it might open the door more. I thought that in particular, the very controlling, like kind of Michael Hamilton-esque decks would be maybe hurt a little bit too much by it. After testing more, I think that those decks are still quite good and can still block surprisingly well off the back of D-Reacts and off the back of Crown and off the back of what's the shield? Rampart as well, or Stalagmite. So the deck is still very much alive and kicking. I think it still might be the deck to beat. It wouldn't surprise me. It's probably not as far above the rest as it used to be. I think it does need to kind of choose of, does it want to lean more into the Prism matchup, or does it want to lean more into the Chain matchup? And there's a bit of tension there, like the more defensive versus more aggressive list. And I think that tension's healthy for the deck. So I'm hopeful that maybe we'll see some decks attacking it at the PT. But I also do think that in some ways, not that much has changed. The deck's still very good. I think that Prism will still be represented as a counter to that deck. Not a hard counter, but a favorable matchup. And Chain was already good. Chain continues to be good. Chain's probably going to pick up some metagame share with Viserai being pretty heavily gutted. I don't think the deck is dead by any means, but I don't see it being a player in this metagame. The aggro strategy is just not particularly good into Starvo, and losing the Skeleta is just a huge hit on power. But I do think that like there is an aggro Viserai list out there that once Starvo leaves the meta and opens and more avenues are open to aggressive strategies, I think we might see Viserai coming back. I think that that deck can still do things. I don't think it's all over for Viserai, but for now, I don't expect to see him at the PT. In terms of the ban though for Skeleta, it's funny, right? I think that on one hand, it's a card that I was definitely vocal about, saying that this card does too much. The amount of resources it could generate and the card advantage engine it could form with Sonata was just wild. And especially on some of the like aggro Viserai turns where you just have Revel and then you go Revel into Sonata out of nowhere and draw 3 cards, and it was just it was unreasonable. So I think it's overall net positive that that card's gone. I do find it a little bit funny that Starvo's left mostly intact and Viserai is the one that suffers a little bit more, so that part is perhaps a little bit of a miss, but I'm not too worried about it. I think that even if Viserai ended up being okay in this metagame, when Starvo's gone, that deck is going to take over. Like that card is going to have to go, or Sonata is going to have to go, and I think it makes a lot of sense that they handled it that way. So
you are so do you think enough was done with the ban list? I'll say my opinion of it. It matters less, but it's I feel like the win percentage, like the matchups between the top 3, I feel like they got a little more even, and all they did was take Viserai out and put Chain in. But I think there's still, it seems like that top 3 is solidified and is gatekeeping everybody else. What do you think about how the new meta is shaping up?
I tend to agree. I think that in some ways the metagame feels the same. In some ways I might prefer the old meta more, just because I liked Viserai, and Viserai was a deck I might have taken. But personal preferences aside, yeah, I don't think that much has really changed. I think the meta is largely the same, which is a bit disappointing. In some of my early testing, I was having quite a bit of success on a Lexi deck into, in particular, the aggro Starvo, and doing also okay into Chain and into Prism. I was quite high on the deck and very excited about it, but I don't think that the control Starvo matchup is just not salvageable. That deck's ability to block despite having so many 2 blocks is unreal. Just the staunch turn timber, block with a card and crown, you block like 19 damage. It's just it's a little bit much to me. I realize I'm probably biased as a Lexi player, but I feel like there may be a little bit of an issue with Elemental Guardian in general. I think that Oldhim might also be a problem, even though Prism is a very good counter. I think that the sheer amount of defense that he has puts the game in a funny spot where it's very hard to play aggressive strategies into him, and if aggressive strategies get strong enough to go over the top of him, I don't know that that's good for the game either. Like you don't want aggro decks killing each other in 2 turns. I don't think that's an ideal place to be in the game. So I do think that something about that defensive package is just a little bit too high value, and I do feel like Starvo in particular is kind of really the main one gatekeeping the format. I think that Chain is very targetable and very beatable, and what really makes him the premier aggro deck is that he has the most armor to deal with Starvo. I think that's the only thing giving him his spot in the metagame. I think that take that away, there's a lot of decks that can compete. And I think that Prism's metagame place is almost entirely as a counter to Starvo. I think that there's a like Chain and a lot of other aggro decks that I think are maybe not as favored as some people would believe. I think Prism has game into them, but I don't think that Prism is oppressing or particularly problematic for a lot of these aggressive strategies. So while Prism is kind of a top dog, it's largely off the back of Starvo being so good, and there needing to be a deck to challenge that deck. So yeah, I'm hopeful that, you know, once Starvo rotates out, that hopefully the metagame will be more lively. I hope that Oldhim doesn't end up being too much of a damper on things, but I guess we'll have to see.
So you mentioned Starvo's power. If we go back to the last two games over on the West Coast, Best Coast versus Galaxy Gaming, both of those matchups were Prism versus Starvo, and I believe both of them kind of ended very similarly. And it seemed like that slower Starvo build just had not enough answers into that Prism. Is that more indicative of perhaps specific card choices that those players were making, or sideboard decisions, and more on towards their play style, or do you think that is kind of how that matchup is supposed to lay out at this point?
Yeah, it definitely depends on the Starvo list. I think that the aggressive Starvo lists can get there, but are maybe not the most consistent into Prism. If they are very aggressive and they hit well, they can win. But I think that the control deck is actually fairly consistent into Prism, and that the matchup is actually quite tight. I think it's probably Prism favored, but if I had to assign percentages, I'd say like maybe 55-45 for Prism, maybe 60-40 to Prism at best. Like it's far from unwinnable. But it does require the Starvo to play close to perfectly. They need to make very good decisions about which auras to attack and when. I think that playing like cards that help you deal with those auras, like Time Skippers and like Blink, become really important when your deck is not so focused on fusing and you have to play a slower game. You kind of need to be able to stay on top of those auras. And yeah, so I think it's very winnable, but it just kind of ultimately comes down to how well is the Prism able to kind of get momentum and keep it. If they're able to get a large number of spectral shields and protect them from dominate with defense reactions, that can be a route to victory. Or if they're able to double aura again and again and again and again, it can really bury the Starvo. On the other hand, I think there's also definitely games where Starvo can just play it slow, take it step by step, and just completely run the Prism out of auras and out of threats. So yeah, I think it really depends on how exactly the cards line up and how the matchup's played. But the matchup's closer than some people might think, for sure.
Yeah. So you are both getting ready for the Pro Tour. Are you getting, what is your preparation like coming into the Pro Tour? So you won the National Championship of Canada. You have a PTI. Are you using that PTI to go to the Pro Tour? Or using you have a Pro Quest as well, right?
Yeah, I drove down to Portland and won Fab Foundry's Pro Quest down there. So
excellent.
I'm qualified that way, and I'm able to save the other invite for Worlds. Hopefully, that's the plan.
Yeah, you're definitely saving it for Worlds.
Yeah,
Excellent.
so.
Excellent. So coming into so obviously you've known you're going to the Pro Tour for some time. Things have been kind of in flux a little bit with what cards would be in, what cards would have been out. But now, everyone is getting ready. So what are you doing to get ready and go into the Pro Tour? What is your, you don't have to spill all the secret sauce, but what are you doing?
Yeah, playing a lot of games, talking some amount of theory with a variety of players, trying to get a variety of opinions and kind of put my feelers out and kind of get a little bit of a feel for what people think is going to happen. It's a really hard one to read with such a fresh format. Like as much as I think things have maybe not changed, we still haven't had like a big event with results that have like really solidified a metagame. And I think that compared to the calling Indianapolis, which you kind of knew exactly what to expect, I feel like there's a few curveballs, and I think there's some questions of, in particular, which Starvo list is the most popular. Do people think that the control deck is the way to go? Or do people think that the aggro deck is the way to go? And depending on which one of those shows up in full force and which one of those rises to the top is the other part, it could really affect what that winner's metagame looks like and what the decks that ultimately end up being successful at the event are. So it's a tricky one to prepare. There's a lot of kind of give and take. It's hard to, you kind of know what the big decks are, but you don't know exactly who's gonna beat who and what the proportions are gonna be. So that part is tricky. So been doing a lot of thinking about that. Been trying to test as much as I can, variety of decks. We kind of started with some of the biggest decks to get a feel for, first of all, is Starvo still good? Yes, it is. Yep. How does Chain and Prism fit into the equation? Do we want to play one of those decks, or do we want to bring something else that can maybe deal with all three, or two of the ones that we're most worried about? So that's been kind of the process. A lot of games. Just recently, I've been getting up early with Zane, fellow West Coast member. And we've been playing games at 5:30 in the morning, which has been not my favorite time to play, but also the events on the East Coast, and that's about when we're going to be having to get up and be playing Flesh and Blood. And seeing as how tired and how hard that's been for me right now, I think it's a good thing that we're doing that practice, even though I get up very begrudgingly every morning.
Now, that brings up a good point. Do you, how much do you feel like there's a physical and mental preparation part of this going outside of play testing? You know, both the calling and the Pro Tour are these, you know, the long events. We're talking, you know, I'm not sure the specific structure. I think there's something that's like 7 rounds in day one before a top cut. That is at least, that's 7+ hours, likely without a break. And that's just day one. What are you doing, and what are your thoughts on going into like a large scale tournament with that kind of endurance requirement going into that, and what are some of the things that you're doing to prepare for that aspect of it?
For sure. I think that there is some prep and consideration that goes into that. Part of that is, if you're able to, I think having long testing sessions where you play a lot and you do get used to playing like many games in a row can be helpful. I think that making sure that, you know, come the event, you're well rested is important. And that's part of the reason I've been trying to just shift my sleep schedule to be a little bit earlier so that I'll be, you know, kind of more accustomed to the time zone. I think that can be quite important, especially for people traveling from overseas. It's just such a huge shift in time for them. Day of at the event, eating well, staying hydrated are super important. I always bring food, something that is like granola bar or fruit or something packable, but also good for you and healthy. I think is super important, and something that I always do for big events, because the last thing you want to do is be starving or be really, really thirsty and just not able to nourish yourself and take care of yourself. It does add up, and you might think that you can power through it, but you know, round after round, decision after decision, it will start to affect you, and I think just making sure that you've done that's important. And on that note, I think as much as prep and as much as jamming games is great, you do need to make sure that you have a few breaks in there, and that you don't burn yourself out either. So that's something I'm feeling a little bit, definitely feeling a little bit of burnout, and I'm probably going to just take maybe Friday or Saturday to myself and just
Mhm.
spend that time with family, with loved ones, and just relax a little bit before getting back to it. And I think giving yourself the opportunity to, like, yeah, you want to practice, yeah, you want to give yourself the best chance to do well, but you also want to make sure that you're not so tired from that practice that you can't perform at the actual event.
Absolutely. Now, do you do you feel are you at a point in your testing where you feel like you've made your deck choice, or are you still kind of up in the air a little bit? Where are you in that respect?
I think I have begrudgingly made a good choice.
Mhm.
Um, we kind of, some of my testing group and I were talking last night, and we're kind of at this point where when the event is less than 10 days away,
Mhm.
there's not that much time. And while we might be able to get a better deck if we spend more time kind of waffling and exploring options, if we don't have reps on it, it's not going to matter.
Yeah. Right.
So just kind of committing to something. I wish I could say I was really excited about the meta, but it does feel a little bit not as fresh as I had hoped. And yeah, I'm sort of in this funny spot where I think that there's some very good choices. I think that both Starvo and Chain look very good, but I think I've pretty much decided that I'm not going to be on one of those decks just um, because I think they do have the best matchup spreads. I think that Prism has some vulnerabilities to aggro decks, and has a little bit weaker matchups in a few spots, whereas um, Chain and Starvo are just like a little more well-rounded, a little more resilient.
Mhm.
Um, but ultimately, I don't think I can play those decks. I don't think I have enough time to learn a deck like that and to
Yeah.
compete at the highest level. There's lots of people who have been playing Chain and Starvo for months now, and
Right. Right.
to think that I can pick that up and just take, I can take Michael Hamilton's list and sub out some Autumn's Touches for some worse cards, and hope that I can, eventually maybe beat him or somebody at his caliber is I
Right.
think a
Right.
little bit over optimistic. So definitely kind of looking to lean into my strengths as a player and play something that I know, but I also think is well enough positioned. So
Now, are you concerned about any? Is there any dark horses in the meta that you might be concerned with that have an outside shot, have perhaps a solid matchup into one or more of these tier one decks, and if they if they navigate correctly, could possibly see some action in day two and beyond.
maybe, never say never. I think there's a possibility. I would be quite surprised, though, to see something besides probably the big three of Starvo, Viscerai, Starvo, Chain, or Prism
Hmm.
do well. Um, Maybe Briar. I could maybe see Briar. I don't know that Briar is quite a dark horse, but
Hmm.
it wouldn't
Hmm.
shock me if Briar did okay. I don't think the deck is fantastic, but I think it can do some powerful things. Um, the closest thing to a dark horse is like maybe Dash, maybe Lexi, but I think both of those decks have real problems. I think that there's
Hmm.
certain matchups that are just very difficult, and it is hard to. I don't think there's very many decks that can account for Runeblade, Illusionist, and Elemental Guardian all
Yeah.
at the same time. I think you
Right.
can pick one or two, but you
Mhm.
cannot. It's very hard to beat all of them, and maybe somebody will make a really awesome metagame read, and maybe just only some of those decks will be at the top tables, and they'll be able to farm them, and that would be exciting to see. But I'm not personally expecting it.
Heard it here first. Raiden Bolton coming back. Um, so you mentioned that you're probably going to take the day off for yourself, Friday or Saturday. What does Yuki like to do for fun?
When I'm well, right now it's a lot of card games.
Yeah.
When I'm not playing card games, I like the outdoors a lot. I go in the winter. I love going skiing. I've been skiing pretty much my whole life, mostly downhill skiing. I like hiking, snowshoeing, camping, backpacking. Not going to do such an ambitious trip, but maybe get outdoors a little bit. Even just like going for a walk is really nice. I've always loved kind of being active and being outdoors, so I might look to do something like that. Might also just look to catch up with people. I find it hard to balance, work and card games and everything else. So, visiting with friends and family, watching movies or playing board games sometimes are all things I enjoy as well.
Awesome. What is your favorite food?
Oh, I have to pick one.
You can have a top 5, top 10, however you want to do this. What do you like to eat?
Yeah, I love food. I like cooking. I used to work in restaurants as a chef for a while. So food is a major passion of mine.
We found the question, right?
I like I mostly like I especially like Asian cuisine. I'd say like Chinese and Japanese cuisine are some of my favorites. In terms of favorite food, I think maybe like sablefish or black cod, it's sometimes called, is probably my favorite food. I like seafood in general, but that fish is just unbelievably yummy. The texture is perfect. It's so buttery. It's great. If anyone hasn't tried it, would highly encourage you to. And try it at a Japanese restaurant. Their miso black cod is pretty good.
Where can you find the best miso black cod in your area?
Geez, I don't know about the best. It's pretty good everywhere, honestly.
Pressure's on. Just anywhere that has miso black cod must be know what they're doing.
Most places are pretty good. Sometimes I just buy it at Fujiya, which is like a local Japanese market, I guess. And they have some like prepared, like marinated ones that you can just take home and cook, and that's really yummy. You can make it at home. Look up a recipe. It's very, very simple. Yeah, it's mostly just about like the flavors and just having a nice piece of fish. And I think that the fish, one of the nice things about it is it's super forgiving. It has so much, it's like a fattier fish, and it doesn't dry out that easily. So most places can't go too far wrong, unlike some other seafood where it can get pretty dry.
Well, Yuki, it has been a pleasure having you here. At this point, if you have anything that you would like to plug, by all means, let's have that out there. Give us your socials and anything you want to say. The floor is yours.
Thanks. So again, thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure chatting with you guys. Shout outs. Yeah. Shout out to the local Vancouver scene, as well as, all of West Coast, Best Coast, and a lot of the Canadian scene in general. I think that there's a lot of collaboration between players from different regions and camaraderie there. That's really awesome. What else? Shout out to you guys for being such amazing hosts and like organizing our team for the team league. I think that's been a ton of fun, and I really appreciate all the work that's gone into that. For anybody looking to follow me or anything like that, I'm on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @Yuki Lee Bender. Should be able to find me on there. I also write for Red Riot Games occasionally, although I've been on a little bit of a hiatus, just been very focused on getting ready for the Pro Tour. But more content should be going up soon, and I do plan to continue writing with them, so you'll see more articles in the future.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much, Yuki.
I think the only thing left to do is plug our stuff, Adam. So you can find us on Twitter @The Combat Chain. You can find myself @PatSmashGood, and you can find Adam @TomFooleryTCG. You can be sure to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel to see our ever-growing content, and you can find us you can find the audio of our podcast wherever you stream your podcasts. Be sure to click the link below for our Patreon, and of course, we had mentioned earlier, we are giving away our Heralds of Rebirth to the first 15 members who subscribe to the founding Link of the Combat Chain tier on our Patreon. And that, of course, will also link you to our Discord. Thanks again for our special guest, Yuki Lee Bender, for coming on. We're going to try to do the outro? We're going to do the thing. Yuki, we're going to do the thing. Okay, here we go. I'm going to lead it for the first time. All right, so we're probably going to take this little chunk and put it onto the very end. But we conclude the episode every time with a mess that sounds good in post because Adam edits it. But I'm going to say until next week, and then we're all going to say we are closing the combat chain. And that's going to be our outro, okay?
Okay, that sounds good.
All right, guys, that should do it for us. Thank you, Yuki, for coming on. And I think that wraps it up. So until next week, we're closing the combat chain. It's like a symphony in my ears.
Perfect.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's it.
Nailed.
Great.